¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Sorry about that, folks. Whew. All right. Welcome, everybody. Sorry about that. Putin won the Russian election for 6 more years. Yes, that's true. Welcome, Quad Bennett, Heat 420. Sorry about that. Yeah, blank. I think I need my safety blank. Blanky. Welcome. Let me make sure I got everything going here. I'm tired, folks. It's Monday. Alright, we do have quite the amount of things to go through, so I guess we should start getting started, huh? It's Monday here too. Yeah. Weekend cannot be long enough, that's for sure. I'm already tired and waiting for the next I'm already tired and waiting for the upcoming weekend. That's what Bernie Sanders says. True. I agree. I agree. All right, folks. Let's get started. Before we do so, the usual disclaimers. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the follow button. It really does. It really does help us out. If you're on the YouTube, like the stream, subscribe, share, spread the word. We're here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Join the Discord by clicking on !Discord. You can join the Discord, hang out with some cool people, and if you want to participate in the monthly movie night, that's where it happens. The last Saturday of every month, which I believe is coming up in 2 Saturdays from now. 2 Saturdays from now, I believe. So not this Saturday, but the next one. It's not this upcoming Saturday, but the next one. I did just a test poll on Dune, and it looks like you guys are open to that idea. So I guess that's probably going to be the movie. Dune, the first one, will probably be what we end up watching. Mouselander, welcome. All right, folks, let's get it started. Heat 420 with the 10 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. Osmond says he saw it and it was good. All right, there you go. Works. Another vote of confidence. Works for me. I think we should start with this one. I didn't see this one, so this one should be good. Where is Kate?
Just so you know, 5% of pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women when that's not actually true.
Don Lemon's.
Oh my god. A weird thing that is happening across the pond. Oh, Kate, like the royal I don't know. I don't keep up. Sorry.
His interview with Elon Musk is out, and I have to say I am pleasantly surprised.
Oh, Middleton is missing. Gotcha. I'm sorry. I have no clue on that one.
When clips first started rolling out from this interview that Don Lemon shared initially with his former employer CNN, I was not impressed. In fact, even on Twitter, I wrote that Lemon somehow manages to make Elon Musk look like the more normal of the two. That was in a discussion over their drug use. Don Lemon may have been trying to do his former employer dirty because this was probably the least interesting part of the entire hour interview. I'm not sure why he led with this as a way to tease the discussion, but I got some clips coming up. So, of course, in case you missed last week, Elon Musk decided to tear up the contract with Don Lemon hours after taping the interview with him. And it's now become very clear after watching the discussion, because it does not make Elon Musk look good. Not that many things could make him look good, but this interview, to Don Lemon's credit, did a pretty good job at making Musk look like the clown he is. So I'm going to get to a few clips here. Again, it's an hour interview. I'll link to it below this video. It's posted all on YouTube. It's impossible to properly summarize everything because, again, it is an hour long. But I have a few clips that, for me, were highlights. Let's start here with the beginning of the discussion, or part of the discussion, around undocumented immigrants and Elon Musk's stance that, as he calls them, illegal immigrants are stealing elections for Democrats.
If you just look at the math, if you look at the apportionment,
Yeah, so like that's not happening. So there's no like, there shouldn't be any like further discussion other than like, yeah, dude, that's just not happening.
with and without illegals, I believe California would lose. I believe the blue state, there would be a net loss of blue states of approximately 20 seats in the House. This also applies to the Electoral College. So you say, like, well, this also applies to
What? How does this apply to the Electoral College, dude?
electing the president.
That's not how this works at all.
Because the electoral votes are also done by apportionment the same way that House seats are done.
But the reason, Elon, the Electoral College is in place is to balance that, is so that doesn't happen. So what you're saying about it is the exact opposite of the reason why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College at this point, in our history, gives people who are in smaller states and red states much more of an influence over our elections than people who are in blue states, and the majority of the people in this country. That's what the Electoral College does. It
Right. Don Lemon is 100% correct here. Oh, I don't care what to ask you. Elon should be wise and shut his dumb mouth for once. I think Elon wanted all softballs. Probably. That's probably what he thought was happening.
actually does the exact opposite of what you're saying. It protects people who are in smaller states and protects people who are in red states.
Well,
The red states, because they tend to be smaller and less populous.
I think that statement is what you said is true, but what I said is also true.
No, it isn't.
Yet you only focus on the one that doesn't even really matter. I'll get to more on that in a second here, the point he was trying to make, and Don Lemon's point as well. But I just want to first look at the overall picture of the discussion here. I think it's important to point out the biggest leech on the U.S. government that is an immigrant. Who is that person? Elon Musk. Elon Musk has survived off of government money. He built his empire with government money.
This is my daughter, Aya. She said to me, why we have to move.
They're both goobers. Yep. He's such a big brain.
Spacecraft manufacturing and launching company SpaceX exists largely as a conduit for government contracts, having inked $15.3 billion worth of them since 2003, with another $1.2 billion reportedly in the works. Tesla, meanwhile, received a critical $465 million loan guarantee via the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act in 2010. The company also dropped the price of its cars, very likely so that they could qualify for the tax breaks offered by the Inflation Reduction Act. The biggest leech on the U.S. government that is an immigrant, Elon Musk from South Africa. That's who it is. It's this billionaire. Yet he has the gall to go out there and try and claim that other people are leeching off the system and are somehow impacting elections in a way.
Well, I mean, yeah, we know that immigrants are net givers, not net takers when it comes to the small amount of even social services that we do provide. Yeah.
Way that benefits Democrats, when even his own point does not bear the fruit that he thinks it does. When I'll get to the recent news on that front in a second here. But also worth mentioning here, unauthorized immigrants pay sales taxes, as does everybody else, and very significant numbers of them also have federal and state tax withholding in their paychecks. Undocumented immigrants pay taxes amounting to tens of billions of dollars in local, state, and federal taxes per year, even though they can't access most benefits that U.S. citizens are entitled to receive. Big example here, the Social Security Administration estimated in 2010, for example, that
Yeah, so net givers, not net takers. Right. Meanwhile, he's the one that's actually affecting elections. Correct.
such immigrants contribute $12 billion per year more to the Social Security system than they take out. Yet all this focus on undocumented immigrants and how there's some kind of leech in the system, how they're, swaying elections, completely absurd. This is the recent census. So he's talking about how the census, every 10 years, the House is remade, usually a little bit, based on the census. So people living in certain states where they live, there's often a shift every 10 years with House seats because of that. The most recent shift benefited Republicans. States that gained seats were mostly Republican leaning. States that lost seats were mostly Democratic. So to get more specific here, Texas gained 2 seats, with Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon adding 1 each. 7 states each lost a seat as a result: California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. This isn't. It's important to be clear as well. If this was an issue with Republicans, if this was impacting their ability to form government, to win elections, they would be doing everything they can to change that. And in some ways, I mean, in terms of trying to scare undocumented immigrants from filing their census, they have in some ways tried to impact this. But even still, this has benefited Republicans. And for you to be so concerned about this instead of the obvious, the fact that the popular vote does not choose the president, kind of shows your ass here.
Yeah. Kami K's1, welcome.
So since George H.W. Bush won in 88, Republican candidates have received the majority of the American people's votes in only one presidential election. In fact, it was the election that Mr. Bush's own son, George W. Bush, won in 2004. But despite the party's dismal results, the GOP has still managed to claim the White House almost as many times as the Democrats. If you're concerned about democracy, how is this not your main issue? I mean, it is obvious that Elon Musk does not care about actual democracy, or this would be his...
Right. That is 100% correct. Elon Musk doesn't care about fucking democracy or free speech or any of that. He does not care.
He wasn't, fighting for one party or the other, didn't have any political leanings, is as independent as he tries to claim to be. This would be his focus.
Right. And he's 100% not independent if he's consistently batting for Republicans, right? Like that's by definition bias. My replacement birth certificate has shipped. Nice.
One more clip on this topic, just because it ends with this face. And this is the moment that Elon Musk realized, I look like an idiot.
But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So,
What? That's not not how that works. The amount of people in the population does not determine the amount of electoral votes. Like that's not, if you had if you had 20, well, what is he? What did he say? 20%?
electoral votes for president. But my understanding is that there would be that the Democrats would lose approximately 20 seats in the
Oh yeah, the amount of seats does not translate into the amount of electoral votes. If you somehow lost 20 seats, that doesn't mean you lost 20 electoral votes. That's not how this works. Yeah, you would think he knows that. I don't know. I don't know. Don explains it. All right.
House if illegals were not counted in the census, and that's also 20 less electoral votes for president. So the illegals absolutely do affect the who controls the House and who controls the president.
So obviously the main issue is that illegals, as he puts it, undocumented immigrants, do not vote. Okay? They don't vote, Elon. They can't vote. So how are those representatives being elected by undocumented folks?
Presidency. It does not affect the Senate.
Yeah. In blue states, you're talking about. I
Yes.
don't believe that your information on that is right. So listen.
When I first saw that response, or I should say that reaction from Elon Musk, this is when I started slapping my leg laughing, because this is, I should correct myself. This isn't the moment that Elon Musk realized he looks like an idiot. I'm not sure he'll ever admit to himself that he looks like an idiot. But this is the moment he realized he is tearing up this contract with Don Lemon, because Don Lemon is making, or I wouldn't say making him look like a clown, but allowing him the space to look like the clown that he is. And I'm sure at this point, you know,
He's just so stupid. He's just so stupid. But the system is so complicated that most people don't understand, so he can just lie. He says that they're counted in the census skewing the numbers or something.
he's a little bothered by the fact that Lemon keeps pushing back on all of his bullshit and isn't just sitting there to accept the crap he's being given because of the contract that they had. Now, just briefly on the contract, I'm not sure what the contract was about, because Don Lemon has clearly the rights to the show anyways. The show is being posted here, on YouTube. It is going to be posted on YouTube anyways. This may have been a timed exclusivity contract, so that's possibly what the contract was about. But regardless, Elon Musk, as you can see there, in this moment, is realizing what is happening in this interview. Now, I got one more clip to show, because this, for me, really documents just how far down the right-wing rabbit hole Elon Musk is.
After the door blew off this mid-flight, this Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be DEI. Do you believe that women and minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white?
That is what he's saying, by the way. Like, that is literally what Elon is saying. Kinetic Pause, welcome. How can he not understand this? I live in Denmark and I get it. Yeah, like, obviously, like, you could say that, like, and how much, like, does actually, like, congressional apportionment actually change? I don't know. But yeah, the fundamental issue with Elon's statement is that the representatives still have to be elected, right? And the second part, which he said that it affects electoral votes, it doesn't, because representatives aren't electoral votes. These are two completely separate things.
White male pilots.
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
But they aren't. That's the thing. They aren't. Like, you do still, regardless, you still have to pass whatever, it is that you have to do to be a pilot. Like, they don't just give you a pilot's license, right? Because you're a minority. That's not how that works. It's never worked that way.
Okay. But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it
I
is.
just want to tell you that pilot that you talked about.
He's literally just saying stuff. What evidence are you talking about? Can you point to like a specific policy? Like, can you point to like where the licensing guideline says, you have to complete whatever it is, like however many hours, whatever simulation testing, whatever, a book test is how you have to do, and then like an asterisk. But if you're a minority, then you just get a stamp, and that's it. You're a pilot now. People do get looked over because of their name, appearance, or background all the time. That happens, and that's the whole point of trying to get that corrected, right? So that you can't or you shouldn't overlook people because of their name or background or whatever it is, appearance, anything, gender. It doesn't matter. The point being is that if a person does everything and pass their pilot's program, then that's it. They shouldn't be looked over simply because they're of a different gender or because they have a name that sounds like a way too minority sounding name, because that does happen. Like that's the whole point. But Elon, of course, yeah, he did. Michael Hasser, welcome.
In fact, was a woman pilot, landed the plane safely despite the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a faulty.
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure.
But you just said, wait, whoa. You just said that they did lower standards. House is way too small for current population. In any case, it should be increased to cube rule, which would favor Dems and dilute the Senate's outsized power in the Electoral College. In a normal, rational scenario, yes, we would have some kind of proportional increasing or decreasing representation, because it's supposed to be the House of Representatives. So that's not, And of course, in an ideal scenario, we wouldn't even have the Senate. The Senate would be kind of like a part of the House. It could be reincorporated into the House. It wouldn't be its own like separate upper chamber that can single-handedly stop democratic processes from happening. But
include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive.
Introducing the Ungun, the non-lethal self-defense platform. Lightweight and simple to use. It uses an easy-to-load
Look at that.
5-round
So
now we're being sold pepper ball stuff.
the incentive structure, I believe, at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. In my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand?
Okay, but Boeing taking like deliberate, decisions to cut corners, right? You don't criticize that. You criticize Boeing's diversity program because you think, or you are claiming, that somehow standards are being lowered for pilots because they are, minorities.
How by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But do you?
But
you don't-
nobody is. Nobody's lowering standards, dude. You're making that up. I just got here. What the F? I'm sorry you walked into this, Wolf Glen. Welcome. Again, nobody is lowering standards, dude. You just made that up. That's not a thing that happened.
I think everyone can agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent. That's what
No,
you're
I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering the standards?
But they're not! Carpet, welcome. We were all sold the lemon. They all take the same tests, and that they all must pass. Those who don't make the grade, well, Gandalf deals with them. I agree, Carpe.
Just so you know, 5% of pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women when that's not actually true.
I'm not saying there's a widespread takeover.
Well, you're saying that the standards are being lowered because of certain people.
This is
Yeah, like, Jesus. What lower standards is racism, Elon. Elon is saying that the girl girlified just because she was black and she wasn't qualified. Right, that's literally what he's saying. That's the implication of exactly what he's saying. But, like, provides no evidence that this is even happening, right? He just made it up because of, like, 2016 levels of politics, okay? Like, that's what we're dealing with. Like, 2016 edgelord politics, that just, like, funneled into, like, the far right. That's basically what he's doing. Yeah, he might as well say 1350. Diverse workforces are a better part of the reason why Enron and WorldCom's lack of diverse workforce failed is because of a lack of a diverse workforce. Everyone thought the same, so they didn't see a foreseeable problem.
is incredible. Not only because it showcases how far down the right-wing rabbit hole Elon Musk is, but also because it showcases what happens when you corner a capitalist with the fact that a massive corporation like Boeing is cost-cutting. They can't possibly blame capitalism. They can't possibly think that maybe they're cutting these costs, they're focusing less on safety because they're in a rush. I'm going to get to in a second, Boeing specifically here, because they're in a rush to compete. No, it must be because of it must be because of wokeness. It must be because of diversity, equity, inclusion. That must be why there are these cost-cutting issues, not because these massive companies are forced to continue increasing their value. So Ro Khanna back in January actually had a good tweet about this, saying DEI programs didn't cause Boeing's failure, just like wokeness didn't cause Silicon Valley Bank's collapse last year. The answer you're looking for is the thousands of corporate lobbyists teaming through Congress every day to help deregulate safety standards on behalf of...
Right. So, correct. And this is capitalism. Welcome, Conscious Canuck. So a pilot that is not a white male means standards lowered. Please, why do we care why the guy that was forced to buy Twitter and is going to have to explain to a crown prince why he lost billions of money? What could go wrong? Right.
Of ultra rich shareholders. And they're doing that because these massive companies want to cut costs as much as possible. And a good reply to that tweet in this thread here. First, the baby formula, then train derailment and banks, now airplanes. Are government deregulations really to blame? No, it's the wokeness that's to blame. This is what Elon Musk is trying to sell you. Now, I'm not sure what's actually in his brain. I'm not sure if he realizes he's full of shit and he's just propagating this because he is an ultra capitalist. He's a billionaire and he can't possibly look at the greater problem here of capitalism. But regardless of the reasoning, he's putting out this trash.
Wokeness so strong. Please, a pilot who is white standards lowers. They're not hungry enough to keep the job. Comic is in with the tier 1 sub for 2 months. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Yeah, it's about true. It's about his skull shape.
And like Don Lemon, they're cornering him with just how few women and black people are pilots. I mean, completely blows a massive hole in whatever argument Elon Musk is trying to make. And, this has been reports on this have been going out for years. This is from 2020. Former Boeing engineers say relentless cost cutting sacrificed safety. And that actually, sorry, I think this is 2019. And on that report, so the result of 18 months of investigations found that Boeing pushed to cut costs in order to compete with its European rival Airbus. The report said, quote, there was tremendous financial pressure on Boeing and the 737 MAX program to compete with Airbus's new aircraft. Among other things, this pressure resulted in extensive efforts to cut costs, maintain the 737 MAX program schedule, and avoid slowing the 737 MAX production line. It was competition, actually, that caused them to cut these costs. Last couple things, just largely on this interview. So Lemon afterward, speaking to People magazine, said he's never interviewed anyone quite as sensitive and touchy. I love that. And that Musk was not used to being held to account. That was very clear in that interview. Well, he's not used to having to answer to anyone, especially someone like me who doesn't share his worldview, who doesn't look like him. You know what I'm saying? When I questioned him about about things that he put out on social media, posted or tweeted that weren't factual, it was very uncomfortable for him, to the point where he and his team wanted to see the interview before it aired. Oh, free speech warriors wanted the final pass on the interview, which was a big capital N no. He also went on to say, Don Lemon did, for someone who doesn't care about what people write or say about him, he sure does care about what people write or say about him.
True.
It couldn't be more true.
That's hilarious. Another way of putting it, Elon Musk is just one big snowflake. That's another way of putting it. I despise the evil muskrat. When there are no black people to fly big planes in the sky, that's racism.
I love emergency medicine. We're at our best when it's the most chaotic because that's how we thrive. The nights, the weekends, the holidays, that's what we train for.
I lost respect for Musk after his trip in Israel and weird comments afterwards. There's been a lot of reasons to lose respect for Musk even before that. Even before that. Turns out dude was never a good dude. Yeah. On the account of being a oligarch and everything.
for, right? When we could no longer actually take care of the patients the way we would want our grandmothers treated, that's when we started having problems.
Michelle is one of 3 physicians we talked to who works for a private equity-backed emergency department. After private equity came to their hospitals, patients sat in the waiting room for hours and went home to record medical bills.
Nobody feels good about 15-hour wait times. Nobody feels good about...
Yeah, so like the whole premise could be stopped at like private equity owned hospital, right? Like there it is. That's the problem right there. Just circle that and get rid of that. He bought Twitter to make it unsafe for trans people. Yep. And hey, look at that. It's now just a Nazi cesspool. It's now just a Nazi cesspool. I love Twitter and he ruined it. Profit motive investigation over. We know the problem. Yeah. Like we could stop at. Wait, what does she say? We can stop at a private equity backed emergency. Any like private equity backed, right? Like we could just stop it there. 19 seconds in, and yeah, we pretty much know where this is going.
Department. After private equity came to their hospitals, patients sat in the waiting room for hours and went home to record medical bills.
Wow, no way.
Nobody feels good about 15-hour wait times. Nobody feels good about bad patient outcomes.
Hey, remember when we were told that having a public, single payer system was going to result in like 10,000 year wait times? Remember? Yeah. Remember when we were told that like a public single payer option was gonna lead to way more bigger wait times? And that's why you should go with a private profit motive option? Yeah. Yeah. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Every capitalist accusation is a confession and projection. Shocked, I tell you.
Physicians are experiencing burnout and moral injury at unprecedented rates.
The fact that investors or companies are coming into this place.
Remember when we were told that it would be like way worse for doctors? That nobody would want to be a doctor? Because under a socialist system, which is just really just single payer. It's neither socialistic. It's neither socialism, but the point being, remember how we were told that that doctors would be treated worse under a government single payer system? Yeah. I still credit Musk for funding a lot of society's transition from the 19th century to 21st century, though. He let us spark under companies to invest in energy storage, closed-loop manufacturing, and looking towards space again.
That is just for people who are in trouble or are scared or are dying. To say, how can we make money here, feels to me unholy.
These 3 doctors are speaking out about the depth.
Moral injury was being they're forced to make eugenic choices. Well, yeah, in the sense that, like, your insurance is not going to pay for this? Whew. I actually don't know. If Elon Musk is responsible for that. But yeah, it's a choice to deny healthcare. Right. Right, it's a choice to deny healthcare that, there should never be a circumstance where a private entity can just overstep your doctor's recommendation for care and then, like, not be able to do it.
devastating impact private equity is having on their work and the lives of their patients.
We have this kind of sacred relationship with patients, and we take an oath to take care of patients. And I think that that really is at odds with the goals of a corporation.
Right, because the goals of a corporation is to make profit. The goals of a corporation, of a private entity, is to make profit. Okay? That's it. That is where it begins and ends. Is how much the quarterly portfolio or the quarterly numbers look. That's it.
Michelle Weiner is an emergency room physician in Detroit.
The city of Detroit has taken a lot of crap over the years. We have a huge vulnerable population, and I think they deserve better. And I'm not even talking about the Lions.
Michelle started working at Ascension Hospital just weeks before she and her colleagues were replaced by Team Health, a private staffing firm owned by Blackstone, the world's largest private equity fund.
We started seeing it almost immediately. It used to be that we would have enough staff that we could efficiently move patients through. Because when you really look at the board and realize there's people waiting for 15 hours and we could have had a better patient outcome if they had been seen in 6 hours, that's really hard to deal with at the end of the day, knowing you're not actually doing your best.
Team Health is what's known as a contract management group.
None of the doctors knew that they were coming in, that the contract had been sold. Nobody told them until the day that they had taken over. I mean, it was almost like being bought and sold like cattle.
Clayton Dalton has a similar story.
Yeah. Whew. It's monsters to turn people away who need health care, and yet that's our policy. Yep. And free medication. Yep. If they can't turn it into a money printer, they don't care. Correct.
He was an emergency physician at Presbyterian Hospital in Santa Fe.
It was a great place to work. We had a good group of doctors who enjoyed working there, many of whom had been there since the hospital opened.
In 2023, Presbyterian announced it would be contracting with a private staffing firm, Sound Physicians, and firing all of its emergency room doctors.
It was a bit of a surprise when they let us know that they were going to be terminating all of us.
The hospital gave the physicians the chance to be rehired by the staffing firm.
I didn't know about Sound Physicians specifically, but I knew a fair bit about the kind of business they were.
Sound Physicians, like Team Health, is a private equity-backed firm that places emergency physicians at hospitals across the country. The company is owned by the healthcare giant Optum Health and the PE firm Summit Partners.
They're not usually in it for the long term. They're not thinking about how do we improve this business long term. They think about how do we make things look better on the short term so we can sell it to somebody else.
Clayton went to the local press.
That's so disgusting.
And protested Sound Physicians' arrival, but ultimately uprooted and found work at a hospital 3 hours across the state. Emergency medicine is one of the youngest medical specialties. It was a wartime necessity and then expanded into trauma centers across the country. Because the United States doesn't have a national healthcare system, emergency departments also became the last resort for people who were uninsured or who didn't have a primary care doctor. If you're in primary care, you can open up your own practice. Emergency physicians are different. They need to work with a hospital. So historically, they would form democratic groups that function like a cooperative and contracted with local hospitals. These doctors would share the decision-making and the profits. In the 1970s, a few physicians abandoned the democratic model and started trying to make the group into a business. The physicians no longer had shared equity in decision-making. They just worked for one or two doctors who had owned.
Yeah, see, that's where things start to fall apart, right? Because it's like one thing if you, the workers, in this case the doctors, own the means of production, right? Like the doctors are democratically making these decisions for their patients and what, best practices are, yada, yada, yada. That's one thing. But
ownership. Unfortunately,
profit motive does not do well with things that you need, like healthcare. Right? Like this isn't optional, right? This isn't like a new TV. You need healthcare.
That's the contract management group. In the 90s and 2000s, these groups consolidated and expanded, and leadership slowly became ex-physicians and business executives, not working doctors. One of these doctor executives was Lynn Massengale, the founder of Team Health. Team Health started, they like to say, in a closet in the lobby of the emergency department in 1979, and grew to be one of the biggest physician staffing agencies in the country.
When we came together in the mid-90s and tried to grow this thing into a national entity, we had the blessing of strong non-physician business people that joined us.
This business model essentially created a model that was interesting to private equity.
Mitchell Lee was a physician at St. John's Ascension with Michelle, and now lives in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mission Hospital is in the community that I live in, and what's happened to it is really an example of what's been happening throughout the entire country, because Mission Hospital is the only level 2 trauma center in all of Western North Carolina. It's the only major hospital, which means there's no other options and there's no competition.
In 2019, Mission was taken over by HCA, the largest for-profit hospital in the country. HCA contracts with Team Health. Since the acquisition, over 200 doctors have left the hospital throughout departments, and the hospital is at risk of losing Medicare funding.
There are now multiple municipal lawsuits, antitrust lawsuits, class action lawsuits against Mission Hospital or HCA for anti-competitive behavior and raising the costs. And there is a movement of the citizens really standing up to oust HCA out of the community.
Private equity started buying CMGs in the 2000s and 2010s. Today, 25% of emergency departments are staffed by PE-backed CMGs. Private equity has been interested in healthcare for the last 20 years, citing, as Bain Capital put it, an aging population. PE has invested more than $830 billion in healthcare in the last 20 years, and has driven consolidation of the market through mergers and acquisitions.
I think that one of the things that is very attractive to
That's just wild how this thing can how this just happens. That's right. They don't care about people. They care about profits. Kami Kazone with the 5 gifted tier subs, gifted tier 1 subs. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If anything is interesting to private equity, run like your life and family depend on it. In this case, quite literally. Yeah, this is beyond evil. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate that. Thank you. This is beyond evil. You're effing with people's lives.
To a CMG or a corporate entity or a private equity investor about emergency medicine in particular is this idea of a captive market. Patients don't really have an opportunity to choose or to do some market research before they decide where they're going to go when they're having crushing chest pain, or when they go off the road in a winter ice storm and are in a traffic accident, right? There's no decision there.
When a PE-backed CMG takes over an emergency room, physicians report...
Right, and we're sold this idea that, the market, the invisible hand of the market will... the almighty invisible hand of the market will take care of all of this. Yeah, maybe for the incredibly rich oligarchs who are literally making money on healthcare, on the idea and restricting, on the idea of restricting who can and cannot buy their health.
Caring for more patients and shorter times with those patients. CMGs replace experienced practitioners with lower paid roles, and patients start seeing unexpected bills, huge bills. A lawsuit against Team Health in North Carolina claimed Team Health pushed unnecessary tests and defrauded state and federal Medicare.
There was no transparency whatsoever. In the old group, we were allowed to see what was billed and coded under our names. In this new group, we were not allowed to see any of the billing.
A 2020 study showed that PE-backed CMGs were routinely taking physicians out of network and then billing patients. A study from Stanford showed that 42% of emergency room visits in 2016 came with a surprise out-of-network bill.
The hospital still says Presbyterian on the front. And there are a lot of people in New Mexico who think of Presbyterian as their healthcare system, right? Maybe they have insurance through Presbyterian, their doctors are Presbyterian, they're gonna go to the Presbyterian hospital when they have chest pain. And there's not a sign on the front door that says that ground floor front door ER is now owned by Sound Physicians Incorporated, an outside investor-owned corporate entity. There's no way patients would know.
In 2022, Congress passed the No Surprises Act, which put a cap on how much a patient could be charged by an out-of-network provider. Team Health came out publicly in support of the No Surprises Act, but then secretly backed a dark money pack with its competitor Envision to oppose the legislation.
Wow, surprise. Fight and win. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. And the invisible hand of the market equals unpaid labor. Yep.
$75 million on ads calling the act
government rate setting.
For now, patients...
as if that, first of all, as if that's a bad thing when it comes to healthcare. Are you serious right now? government mandated rates on healthcare as opposed to astronomical rent-seeking behavior from these private companies. Yes, it's on purpose.
Patients are protected, but that's left the CMGs battling in court with major insurance companies over who's going to actually cover the bills.
Why are
Since the
there
Act
bills in the
passed, Envision
first
filed for
place? Like that's the mega issue with this entire thing. Why are there bills in the first place? The entire thing is effed from the get-go. There's always this myth that privatizing stuff makes it more efficient. Nothing is further from the truth. All they do is extract wealth and resources until there's nothing left but skeleton. Then they suck out the marrow on the way out. Right. Like, their actual motivation isn't whether or not, like, despite, you're right, despite, that legend we're sold, and that myth that we're sold that somehow this is like the most efficient system. It really isn't. The only thing that becomes more efficient is the ways they can do more shenanigans to exactly do that, extract wealth and resources. That's it. That's as far as that's where that's the innovation. That's as far as the innovation goes. Is to how to efficiently extract wealth and resources.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and Team Health has been labeled at risk. They lost their main way of making profits off of patients.
And this is often how they approach the legislature, to say we're going to innovate. Well, they innovate how to make more money for themselves. They don't really innovate anything that's actually helping with society.
Because that's right. That's not their goal. Profit is not always the best goal. No, it's not. But that's the system we live under, and that's what we're conditioned to accept, right? That's literally what we're conditioned to accept. Whether or not that's true is another thing, but yeah, we're conditioned constantly, everywhere you go. We're conditioned to accept that that's just the way it is. Profit is the only thing that matters. Right, legally strip everything and everyone of anything valuable, and if it's not legal, make it legal.
Gouging patients without any transparency in what's billed or collected by the physicians.
Mitchell is a member of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine Physician Group, which is currently suing Team Health and Envision under the corporate practice of medicine laws. In the late 19th century, during the last Gilded Age, laws were established that said you had to have a license to practice medicine, that you had to have certain standards of care, and that a doctor or hospital couldn't be owned by a for-profit corporation. This was the regulation of the corporate practice of medicine. These laws were active in most states, but it varied how often they were enforced. The lawsuits against Team Health and Envision are pending, but there are other things physicians are doing right now to fight the private equity takeover. In 2020, Michelle started talking to her colleagues about the changes that were happening at St. John's. And in 2023, the workers employed with Team Health announced they were unionizing.
It wasn't the difficulty of the job. The nights, the weekends, the violent patients, the drunk, psychotic patients, that's what we trained for, right? It's when we could no longer actually take care of the patients in a way we thought was safe and good, like the way we would want our grandmothers treated. That's when we started having problems.
Michelle will tell you she never expected to lead a union drive. She's a lifelong Republican.
Everybody says, well, how did you get a bunch of doctors to unionize? Because doctors are notoriously hard to unionize. And I said, well, this has been a 7-year process. And when the only Republican in the group says, I think it's time to unionize, we've run out of options, everybody just kind of said, okay, I guess we're there.
The FTC is taking public comments about the role of private equity in healthcare, the rising costs, the deaths in hospitals, the short staffing.
A common theme across comments is that growing financialization in the healthcare industry can force medical professionals to subordinate their medical judgment to corporate decision makers' profit motives at the expense of patient health.
And they're also reviewing private equity acquisitions of healthcare.
It will always be at the expense of patient health, safety, always. Profit is always the worst goal. It's literally unpaid wages. It's theft and always has been. True. These two, they're incompatible. A model that is patient-centric is diametrically opposed to a model that's profit-driven. Like, by definition, these two cannot exist. Because you will always sacrifice patient health and patient safety to cut corners in wherever way you can, in as many ways you can, to deny as much as you possibly can, whether you're an insurance company, hospital, whatever. It will always come at the expense of patient health and safety. That's a good idea. If you want to unionize, convince a Republican of its necessity and get them to lead it.
Providers under antitrust laws.
The fact that investors or companies are coming into this place that is just for patients, right? It's just for people who are in trouble or are scared or are dying. To come into that space and to say, how can we make money here, feels to me unholy. It should just be a public utility. Just like you should be able to have access to safe drinking water.
You know, like a human right, because we're human beings? Yeah, I think so. Fu Manchu, welcome. Sounds like if we had a classless, stateless, moneyless society where we just work towards meeting everyone's needs based on contributing what you can and receiving what you need, then we might not have this issue. Guess that makes me a fringe weirdo. True. Oh man, imagine wanting a world where models function around centering people first. Imagine advocating for a system that is based on on trying to model our perspective based on how can we help each other. What do you need? What do you need? Instead of how much can I extract? It is unholy. Fringe weirdos are our people until we're not fringe or weird anymore.
You should be able to have access to electricity. Like, you should be able to have access to good emergency care whenever you need it.
When I actually applied to do emergency medicine, it was one of the most competitive specialties you could do because everybody wanted to do emergency medicine. And now we didn't match 50% of our residency positions last year because people have been rotating through the department, and as medical students, they see what it's like and the chaos and how everybody is treated, and they are just like, I'm out, I don't want to do this, I'll become a dermatologist, I'll remove moles for the rest of my life, and we're losing a lot of good people.
Thanks for watching The Classroom from More Perfect Union. This is part of our series about jobs in America that have gotten worse because of economic and policy changes.
Because, yeah, another way of putting it is capitalism. Especially with the advances in tech, we should all be living a baseline good life by now. Yep. That's way overdue. Way overdue. But, you know, oligarchs have to make money, so sorry. Sorry about that, folks. Oligarch billionaires just need that one more extra penny. They just need it. And if that means denying you health care, then that extra penny is worth it for them. Why don't you think of the exploiters? They have affluenza. A for-profit system particularly when it comes to basic necessities is gross. It really is. Like tabulating and effectively gatekeeping who can and cannot get health care. Because like these oligarchs need, these private equities need to make money, need to fulfill their financial, their fiduciary duties to their shareholders or whatever is disgusting. It really is. Can you imagine the GOP potentially losing the House due to resignation before the election? Yeah. Yep. We're about to get into it. Honestly, it should be illegal. It should. It really should. There's actually no reason that we couldn't do something like this. We just, actively, as far as like, the political makeup of this country, as far as like people who make laws go, these are active, conscious decisions every day. Every day these people are in Congress. It is an active decision to not make a to not put forward like legislation to make some type of like single payer system. These are conscious decisions that are not being made on purpose every day. Every day they're in session. They could be making these decisions, but they don't. Shifting gears really quickly, 5 other House Republicans could resign after Ken Buck. That's right, folks. But they can try to ban TikTok at the drop of a hat. Yeah, like it was a massive plurality. I think it was like 80% of Congress. Bam, boom, bipartisanship when it comes to like stuff like that, right? Like that. They were able to ban ban TikTok. They were able to pass that ban on TikTok with ease. But man, you start actually asking some real solutions to real problems that exist, and nope, apparently we can't do it. We can't do it. There's just too much gridlock in Congress. There's just too much gridlock in Congress. There's it's just not the time. We just don't have the money. But we send tens of billions of dollars for war. We have money for that. Like, does this track? Like, how does any of this make any sense? The only natural or logical conclusion is that they're actively choosing to do these type of things, or rather not doing these things, not actually fixing any issues. Not really a ban, more of an extortion to sell control of TikTok. Right, at the threat of not being available, i.e. a ban. It's not like, it's not like, oh, we're legislating a ban on TikTok. It's exactly that. It's extortion, but the consequence, so they're strong-arming TikTok into either selling or being booted. That's it. Those are the only two options. So in effect, it is a ban of TikTok. Does that make sense? Because it's like, they don't want it banned, they want control of it. Right, but if ByteDance doesn't release control or doesn't sell, then they'll get the boot. I went over Steve Mnuchin, who's just frothing at the mouth, waiting for that to come through, assuming it does. But yeah, like, it's not that it's like an outright ban in the sense that, like, oh, we're just gonna boom hit the ban hammer. No, it's coercive. It's a coercive ploy. Either you sell or we get rid of you. So it's a de facto ban, right? Just because, the bill doesn't say outright, this is a TikTok ban, then, it doesn't mean it isn't so. Because that's ultimately the only option. Why do you think Steve Mnuchin has a 24/7 greed boner waiting for this? Yeah, 100%. But I'm saying, like, the only alternative... the alternative is a ban. Right? Like, the alternative is that TikTok will be removed. So, like, it is a de facto... like, threat of being banned. I thought they banned it so they can buy it. Right, like, that's the threat. That's the threat. Like, either you sell to Mnuchin over here, or you're gone. Right? So it is a de facto ban, right? But anyways, for that, Congress has no problem coming together. Congress has no problem passing legislation like that. But when it comes to actual solutions, nope. Perhaps the transparency comes from the rush nature of the bill. Yeah, it's like red flag number one. When have you ever seen, like, besides like spending for war, when do you ever see, like, Congress this eagerly bipartisan, right? Like, the only time Congress is this eagerly bipartisan is like for expanding, like, war. Democrats are controlled opposition. Man, it's getting difficult to not see it that way. It's becoming more and more apparent that either Democrats are just so incapable of dealing with the far right, or they are controlled opposition. I guess it fundamentally doesn't matter, right? Because, the problem is that they're not doing it. Not incapable, unwilling. Yeah, I guess the motivation doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, they're not. That's fundamentally the issue. They're not. They're not when they should be. Five more Republican representatives may join Ken Buck in resigning from the House of Representatives if they continue to be dissatisfied with the party's nominee for presidential election. Controlled opposition is the use of black propaganda and saboteurs who claim to oppose a particular faction but are in fact working for the faction. Right, so like, again, you know, either one of these two things have to be true. Either you're incapable of doing it or unwilling. Those are your two options here. Carpe says that they are unwilling, and I mean, like, again, fundamentally the issue is, regardless of what their motivation is or isn't, they're not. They're not doing anything about it when they could be, or at least attempt to, and that's the problem. On Tuesday, Buck, a Colorado congressman, suddenly resigned, leaving his seat vacant for next week and from next week, and shrinking the Republican slim majority to 218. Slim majority to 218 to 213. Previously, he had announced his intention to retire from Congress at the end of his current term. When asked by Axios whether he was coming under pressure from colleagues over his decision, Buck then hinted that more colleagues might resign, saying, "I think it's the next three people that leave that they're going to be worried about." Buck did not elaborate on who might be next to depart Congress, but there are a few Republicans who have publicly voiced negative opinions about Trump and could potentially be next out of the door. One is David Valadao, but a spokesperson for the congressman confirmed to Newsweek that he has no plans to resign and is actively running for re-election. I mean, if they do, then that would be huge. Gotta bring back this banger. Boo. Unfortunately, this link was broken. Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie backed former presidential candidate Ron DeSantis and his failed bid to become the Republican nominee. In a January interview with Fox News, he accused Trump of bullying tactics of securing endorsements from Republicans who are scared to oppose him. They're scared of his base. Okay, that's fundamentally it. They're scared of his base. Chip Roy of Texas criticized Trump for issues at the U.S.-Mexico border. In November, he told CNN that Trump failed to actually secure the border amid concerns about a rising number of migrant encounters. There appears to be no love lost between the pairs. Trump has spoken out against Roy, calling him a rhino on social media. But on Thursday, Roy spokesperson told Newsweek that the speculation is unfounded. Congressman Roy has no plans to resign. Larry Buxahone also pilloried the former president. In August of 23, the Indiana Republican predicted Trump would not be the nominee because of the controversies around him. In October of 23, he said Trump should apologize for the comments he made about migrants poisoning the blood of the country during a campaign rally. He also called Trump out for the Capitol insurrection, claiming that he incited them. California Republican David Valadao was one of the few Republicans who voted to impeach Trump and said that he is not endorsing the president. Meanwhile, Indiana Republican Greg Pence and Wisconsin Republican Mike Gallagher have both announced that they will retire from Congress at the end of the term. Gallagher did not join in efforts to disrupt the results of the 2020 election. However, he twice voted against impeaching Trump. Like Buck, Pence and Gallagher may opt to resign sooner, leaving the House Republicans. I mean, like, if that happens, that would be phenomenal, given that, like, given the fact that, like, Republicans just seem to not be able to govern, which the silver lining here is thank goodness that fascists are incredibly incompetent and tripping over each other. Thank goodness. Because Democrats nowhere to be found, and the silver lining is that the fascists are literally too incoherent and too incompetent. So thank goodness for that. For now. What's your take on the Trump bloodbath comment? You're gonna have to elaborate on that one. Do you think he got chimped? You're gonna have to expand on that one, because I don't know. Maybe send me a link. Maybe send me a link to an article or something, or a video to get the full quote. I mean, like, you know, this is a dude that has said things like immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. So, you know, anything involving bloodbath would not surprise me. Trump called for a bloodbath if he loses the election. Yeah, this doesn't surprise me. This does not surprise me. I got the Secular Talk video on it that shows both the full quote and the watered down clip. Yeah, if you want to send it to me, we can take a quick look. It would not surprise me. This is the same dude who incited the insurrection. Who incited insurrection. So, like, you know what? At this point, like, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. Just send it to us on. Just send it to me on Whispers. We'll take a look at it after this. The EPA bans asbestos, a deadly carcinogen, still used in decades after a partial ban was enacted. So it is now the year of our Lord in 2024, and we are now finally just banning all of asbestos. You sent it. Can you not see the links in chat? No, the link in chat you can't post, but send it to me in Whispers or a direct message. The EPA on Monday today announced a comprehensive ban on asbestos, a carcinogen that kills tens of thousands of Americans every year, but is still used in some chlorine bleach, brake pads, and other products. The final rule marks a major expansion of the EPA regulation under a landmark 2016 law that overhauled regulations governing tens of thousands of toxic chemicals in everyday products, from household cleaners to clothing to furniture. The new rule would ban chrysotile asbestos, the only ongoing use of asbestos in the United States. The substance is found in products such as brake linings and gaskets, and is used to manufacture chlorine bleach and sodium hydroxide, also known as caustic soda, including some that is used for water purification. EPA Administrator Michael Regan called the final rule a major step to protect public health. With today's ban, EPA is finally slamming the door on a chemical so dangerous that has been banned in over 50 countries. This historic ban is more than 30 years in the making, and it's thanks to amendments that Congress made back in 2016 to fix the Toxic Substance Control Act, the main U.S. law governing the use of chemicals. Exposure to asbestos is known to cause lung cancer, mesothelioma, and other cancers, and it is linked to more than 40,000 deaths in the U.S. each year. Ending the ongoing use of asbestos advances the goals of President Biden's Cancer Moonshot, a whole-of-the-government initiative to end cancer in the U.S. The science is clear: asbestos is a known carcinogen that has severe impacts on public health. This action is just the beginning as we work to protect all American families, workers, and communities from toxic chemicals. The 2016 law authorized new rules for tens of thousands of toxic chemicals found in everyday products, including substances such as asbestos, trichloroethylene that for decades have been known to cause cancer, yet were largely unregulated under federal law. Known as the Frank Lautenberg Chemical Safety Act, the law was intended to clear a hodgepodge of state rules governing chemicals and updated the Toxic Substances Control Act, a 1976 law that had remained unchanged for 40 years. That's right. Crazy we still use it, indeed. All right, I see it at OK Life. All right, we'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at it. The EPA banned asbestos in 1989, but the rule was largely overturned by a 1991 Court of Appeals decision that weakened the EPA's authority under TSCA to address risk to human health from asbestos and other existing chemicals. The 2016 law required the EPA to evaluate chemicals and put in place protections against unreasonable risks. Asbestos, which was once common in home insulation and other products, is banned in more than 50 countries, and its use in the U.S. has been declining for decades. The only form of asbestos known currently imported, processed, or distributed for use in the U.S. is chrysotile asbestos, which is imported primarily from Brazil and Russia. It is used by the chlor-alkali industry, which produces bleach, caustic soda, and other products. Most consumer products that historically contained crystal asbestos have been discontinued. While chlorine is commonly used to disinfect water as a disinfectant in water treatment, there are only 8 chlorine alkali plants in the U.S. that still use asbestos diaphragms to produce chlorine and sodium hydroxide. These plants are mostly located in Louisiana and Texas. The use of asbestos diaphragms have been declining and now accounts for less than 1/3 of chloroalkali production in the U.S. The EPA rule will ban imports of asbestos for chloroalkali as soon as the rule is published, but will phase in prohibitions for chloroalkali use over 5 or more years to provide what the agency called a reasonable transition period. A ban on most other use of asbestos will affect in 2 years. The National Association of Clean Water Agencies, which represents 350 publicly owned wastewater treatment agencies, said before the final rule was announced that immediate ban on asbestos would almost certainly cause shortages and price increase for chlorine and other disinfection and treatment chemicals used by the water sector. The American Chemistry Council, the chemistry industry's largest lobbying group, said a 15-year transition period is needed to avoid a significant disruption of chlorine and sodium hydroxide supplies. A 15-year? Bro, are you serious? A ban on asbestos in oilfield brake locks, aftermarket automotive brakes, and linings and other gaskets will take effect in 6 months. The EPA rule allows asbestos-containing sheet gaskets to be used until 2037 at the U.S. Department of Energy's Savannah River site in South Carolina to ensure the safe disposal of nuclear materials can continue on schedule. Scott Faber, Senior Vice President of the Environmental Working Group, an advocacy group that pushed to ban asbestos, hailed the EPA action. Quote, "For too long, polluters have been allowed to make, use, and release toxics like asbestos and PFAS without regard for our health. Thanks to the leadership of the Biden EPA, those days are finally over in 15 years. Cat jumped on my lap. Hard to type now. That's okay. That's a good reason. Separately, the EPA is also evaluating the so-called legacy clause use of asbestos in older buildings, including schools and industrial sites, to determine possible public health risk. A final risk evaluation is expected by the end of the year. Not 15 years. That's what they lobbied for. Sorry. That's what they lobbied for. All right, so let's take a look at this here.
I am very humbly asking if you could chip in $5, $10, or even $25. I know that times could be tough, and they are tough under this horrible president that we have, crooked Joe Biden.
Crooked Joe
So
Biden.
if you can't contribute now, don't even think about it. Don't do it. You got to take care of your family and yourself. I want you to do that first.
But also take
with
care
your
of my legal
donation
fees.
Today, we will win back the White House.
We will win
make America great
my
again, greater than ever before. I
criminal
promise
legal
you that.
cases.
Thank you.
And let's get into this comment made by the former President Donald Trump at a campaign stop in Ohio, saying it will be a, quote, bloodbath if he loses, in reference to the auto industry as he's making comments about China as well. Let's listen into this comment live.
All right, whoa. If you donate 100, you unlock the accordion hands view.
Raw and unfiltered from what he said yesterday.
We're going to put a 100.
Help me, okay? Help me, your favorite president, me, to win my criminal cases in which I attempted to overturn the election, and I'm also trying to win election, but please donate to my legal defense. I mean campaign.
100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Yeah, so, okay, so people who are trying to defend this, because I'm seeing what NOK Life is talking about, people who are trying to defend this are specifically zeroing in on that he was just previously talking about, the automotive industry, and then he says, like, right after that, he goes into, like, oh, if I lose, it's going to be a bloodbath, but that's going to be the least of it. You see? See, that's where that divide starts to be, that's where it transitions from, like, okay, we're not talking about just the automotive industry, right? He's saying that that's the least of it. Donald Trump literally passed legislation that caused 200K manufacturing jobs and many in the auto industry to go abroad. Joe Brandon brought 800K manufacturing jobs back, which is why this is extra silly. Well, anything that he says is pretty extra silly, but,
But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories. A friend of mine, all he does is build car manufacturing plants. He's the biggest in the world. I mean, honestly, I joke about it. He can't walk across the street, and that way he's like Biden. But
he's like Biden.
All right, you're just listening in there to what he said unfiltered there, as a lot of headlines just saying the bloodbath if he loses the election. Of course, he was talking about the auto industry there.
No, he says that's the least of it, right? He says that's the least of it.
All right, guys, so we have another scandal that blew up with Trump. You know how every now and then he'll say something and then there'll be news for 3 days straight and everybody will flip out and he'll get billions of dollars in free media over it because he'll have people who are defending him and people who are attacking him. And next thing you know, all we're doing is talking about Trump 24/7, and it ends up, I think, helping him at the end of the day. Well, anyway, we have a moment like this that just happened. So he was doing a rally in Ohio, and he made this comment, which is being perceived by the left and the right in a complete opposite fashion. They do not at all agree on what was meant by this comment. So let's watch, and then I'll break it down for you.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years.
So they just did a little snippet. Now you're going to see the thing in its full context. But just to reiterate here, that's the contentious comment. If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. And liberals are looking at that and saying, like, he's basically admitting there's going to be another January 6th, another coup attempt, there's going to be violence in the street, there's going to be riots, and it's an admission that it's going to come from his people. Like, this is the gist of the liberal perspective on this. Then now you're going to see the full context of what he said there. You guys make up your own mind, but I'm going to give you my takeaway in just a minute. Here, I have it on 1.25 times speed. I'm going to slow it down for you.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years. 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country, think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States.
Just a couple quick points. His massive tax cut for the rich bill incentivized outsourcing. In fact, under him, we lost 200,000 jobs, 200,000 factory jobs. So the idea that he's up there bemoaning outsourcing of jobs is laughable, because when he was president, he did dick about that. In fact, he put on this whole show about the carrier facility that he was coming to save.
Right, which he never did. It's almost like he's a faux populist, a faux right-wing populist, which is just a fascist.
And what happened? He did a rally there, and he tried to promote the idea he's saving the jobs. Within a year, all the jobs were outsourced anyway. And on top of that, he gave them massive subsidies of taxpayer money. They stole the money. The company stole the money and outsourced the jobs anyway. So
Right.
again, the idea he's going to protect you from your jobs being outsourced is factually wrong based on his own record in his first term. Sorry, I won't interject again until we get to the end.
Now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
So that's the full context. So the Republican/conservative response to what the liberals are saying is, if you look at it in its full context, he's clearly saying, he's talking about economically it's going to be a bloodbath, because if I'm in there, I'm going to protect American jobs, I'm going to tariff the foreign products, and I'll incentivize creating. Now, I already described how he didn't incentivize creating jobs here. There was a net outsourcing of 200,000 jobs. And by the way, under Joe Biden, for all of his many, many, many flaws, and he has a lot of them, we have a net increase of 800,000 manufacturing jobs. So on this one, the record is not close. Biden is just better than Trump. But what conservatives are saying is, look at the full context. He's not saying it's going to be a bloodbath as in there's going to be violence in the streets. What he's saying is there's going to be a bloodbath economically vis-a-vis the auto industry, right? If it's not me. If it is me, there won't be. If it's not me, there will be. So now I want to go back and play this portion of it one more time, because the reason why... So when I first saw this, the full context, I thought, you know what? Sorry, but I think the Republicans are right in their interpretation of it. But there is something at the very end that makes it convoluted and makes it very ambiguous. And so then I'm going to show you this and then give you my full conclusion, which may be a little surprising to some people, but I think it's inevitable at this point. So one more time.
Those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Okay. So that last portion then makes it ambiguous again. If I don't get elected, it'll be a bloodbath, and that'll be the least of it. So even if you're interpreting what he says as it'll be a bloodbath economically because the auto industry thing that he just brought up, well, then he goes on to say, and that'll be the least of it. The least you'll have to worry about is the bloodbath economically from Biden's bad policy.
Right, which is exactly what I read when I listened to it in the first by itself, right? That's literally what I arrived at. Biden needs the left and moderate vote, and he just lost a huge amount of the left. I think so, but any day now he can just be like, you know what, genocide is wrong, and I'm threatening to cut funding off of Israel any day now. So it all make me wonder if Democrats just focused on promoting the good that Joe Brandon did and literally didn't do anything about Trump, like didn't even acknowledge him, it would have been way better for the Democratic campaign. Honestly, I think that I think that they, you know, on the assumption that they want to win, the question becomes like, what would you do? What would you do to win the election right now, right? Because you know what the number one problem is for Joe Brandon, right? The number one issue that's holding Joe Brandon back in terms of like, you know, we're just talking about electoralism, and then ask the question like, well, what are they doing to win the left? What are they doing to win the left? A sizable amount of which is what is needed to win the election.
Right? So then, okay, what is the other thing you're hinting at here? By the way, we can clear this up very quickly. All you need is a reporter to ask Trump, do you think there will be violence if you lose? And then he'll answer it. And then we'll know if he thinks, hey, there might be riots, there might be violence, there might be a, quote, bloodbath in that scenario. And I think...
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can't really fix his age. You can't really fix the age part, but, you know, you can take a more... You can take different stances on inflation, maybe. Maybe do a better job of educating people how inflation actually works, and make it a capitalism issue, and make it a capitalism issue. But he's a capitalist, as he's enthusiastically reiterated time and time again. So he can't really go too far out of line, except for maybe talking about how there's less chips in your bags. And the Gaza thing, at any point he could make the conscious decision to do the right thing, right? To just not support genocide. I mean, like, this is not, this is literally like the bare minimum. Like, these are he could do that right now. So he's not, and he's not. So the question is like, well, why isn't he? It sounds to me like, does he not want to win?
I mean, I think he said it before in rallies that, yeah, if I don't win, there's going to be violence. And it shouldn't be that surprising, because that's what happened last time. That's what happened with January 6th. That's what happened with him attempting to coup the government. The fraudulent elector scheme, their words, not mine. This is what happened. So, by the way, and this is something I think people have been underestimating, the damage of and the danger.
Right, like, it's not like there's not precedent of him inciting violence, right? It's not like there isn't precedent of him saying certain words and his supporters getting the message. Another way of putting it, he has a history of stochastic terrorism. Does that make sense?
Of is there's no way anything ends well. No way. Because we got Trump versus Biden. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, they both make it all the way to Election Day. Well, what's going to happen? If Biden wins, Trump is just going to say he won, and then Lord only knows what happens from there. Lord only knows if he calls bodies to the streets and there is violence and there are riots or things of that nature. So that's one possible scenario. Then you get the scenario, if Trump wins, we get 4 more years of Trump. But beyond that, last time Trump won, we had the Women's March, which was mostly peaceful, overwhelmingly peaceful. But it was like the biggest protest in U.S. history. Who's to say that if Trump wins this time, that we won't have the biggest protest in history and it won't be violent to one extent or another, right? So there is no, like, from where we are now, there is no kumbaya, let's hold hands, everything's okay moment. It's all going to be disastrous. I don't see any way out of this where we come out unscathed. So our institutions were truly, truly questioned. There was a stress test of our institutions last time. This time, it's probably going to be an even bigger stress test.
Yeah, so I think that if Trump does win, it's not I think, he said that he would like, if there is a scenario where Trump wins and there's protests against him, I think that if it's not out of the realm of possibility if he puts on the table putting down protests forcefully. We know this because he did do this. Not after his election, but he went with the National Guard. Scaremongering. Yes, honestly, can make a good case for Biden, but Democrats don't promote his W's. The only time they promoted him well was the State of the Union. Well, until Joey was like, "Yo, Republicans hate immigrants. I do too. You should vote for me instead of Trump." Right. So, then it's not really making a good case for Biden, is it? Right? Because if your guy is marginally better than the far right fascist who's currently under 91 charges, 4 different trials. A chunk of it is for electoral tampering, and that's the guy that you're right now neck and neck to. Whew. We're in some dire straits here. The reality is, I know that this is just a hypothetical. I know that this isn't the current reality, but the reality is he was supposed to be a one-term president. This discussion never needed to be had. Right now, we should be in the middle of a heated primary where a bunch of candidates are fighting it out. Yeah. I think him talking about the amount of jobs he created, how the economy is recovering, inflation is going down, healthcare, drugs have been made cheaper, and student loan forgiveness can really make him look good. But also, you have to be, realistic, right? Yes. Inflation is a big concern, but you can't say that you're tackling inflation while people are still being hit hard in the wallet, right? You just got to be realistic about how you talk about these issues. The same goes for student loan forgiveness. You talk about, student loan forgiveness, but while he did do some of that, there's a lot of people, that are still facing student loans that are about to eat them alive. You know what I mean? So, while it's good that he did do some student loan relief, it's good that, 4-something million people got student loan relief, and perhaps more. You have to know how to convey this message. Just as examples, right?
Might be a worse stress test. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but everything tells me that I'm not. And so what's my final conclusion on this? A long time ago, Corin and I were having a debate on Kyle and Corin. And the point I made to Corin is, no, I think Trump really means what he says and believes what he says. And he's just sort of a crazy old Fox News brain-wormed grandpa. And Corin was insistent that no, Trump says shit for the sole purpose of baiting the backlash and the reaction and getting his name in the news cycle and making it so that he's the number one conversation in the country ad nauseum, ad infinitum.
But why can't both be true?
And having now watched Trump for years more, because Corn and I had this conversation years ago, I am 100% convinced that that's what's going on. In fact, again, Trump even admitted it at one point. He won one of the primaries, and Doug Burgum had endorsed him, and Doug Burgum was next to him on stage. And Trump said something really interesting. He was like, you know what this guy doesn't understand? Big, beautiful, handsome man, great politician. But what he doesn't understand is that sometimes you can be a little bit too clean. Sometimes you need a little bit of controversy. I was like, holy shit, this is through the looking glass. He knows what goes on with the media dynamic around him. And so, what's my takeaway from this? Trump purposefully made it sound ambiguous so that we'd all be debating it and screaming about it and yelling at each other.
Right, but also he knows what he's saying so that the specific people that are listening know what that means. Does that make sense? I'm voting third party. I'm just saying the Democrats are bad at optics and promotion and at doing stuff. They have a losing strategy in government. Yes, we need someone that emulates what made Bernie loved and Andrew Yang loved. I think we can only get a winning formula, but maybe enough unity to pass moderate left policies that can get us in the right direction. Yeah, I mean, like, for that to even happen, oh my God. Honestly, for that to even happen, it'd have to be a all hands on deck. It'd have to be an all hands on deck movement in terms of like electoral strategy to oust corporate Democrats completely. You're having a stroke? Wait, why? Bernie almost won and Andrew Yang dominated the stage. I wouldn't say he dominated. Andrew Yang just turned out to be a clown. It turns out a tech bro it turned out being a very wealthy tech bro, yeah. So anyways, the point being is that, like, if you want actual, like, oh my goodness, in terms of like getting Congress, you'd have to make a completely on the ground grassroots movement to oust the corporate elements of the Democratic Party. I think that you have to do that while simultaneously pushing for ranked choice voting across states. I think that could be a possibility given like the constraints of the system that we live under. But that's the besides that, I don't know, in terms of electoral politics. His problem is that he gave up too early. His policy and ideas and focus were correct, but he was young and he wasn't going to win. He needed to stay active in politics and in people's minds like Bernie. And once people know your name, run again and take the nomination. Yeah, but I'm kind of not up for the idea of tech bros. Not up for the idea of tech bros. I'm just not. No more tech bros. But we need someone who had the talking points, youth, and ability to attract moderate and conservative voters. But is well loved and known like Bernie. What we need is a very, what we need is a built, leftist candidate. Really, that's what we need. But
And then boom, he's the number one story in the country yet again for another 3 or 4 days straight. So that's what's going on here. The fact of the matter is, the interpretations that conservative Republicans have is legitimate. Because certainly, if one cursory listen to it and you're like, yeah, kind of is. I do think he's talking about the auto industry there. That was the context of what he was saying. That's a legitimate interpretation. But then I think the liberals have a point when they go on to say, hey, listen to the few seconds after that when he talks about it'll be a bloodbath, and that's the least of it. That's the least of it. Okay, if that's the least of it, well, what's worse? What comes after that? Certainly could be alluding to violence in the streets.
Right, it's stochastic. That's the whole point. It's stochastic. The people who need to hear that and know what he's saying, right?
Actual
someone who won't turn once they get into office too. Yeah, that's true.
Bloodbath type stuff. So I think they're both right. And so my takeaway is, yes, he's doing it on purpose. He's doing this on purpose. Say something that's really ambiguous, but really like over the top. And boom, the media starts talking about you nonstop. It's another...
Yeah, but he also knows what he's doing. He knows who he's talking to as well, right? Does that make sense? I don't know how to pitch progressive policy without sounding like a snowflake and emotional. You need logical appeal that sells stuff as you not hating America, but wanting America to be great and people to be well off again. I think that's mostly like a straw man about how you think like progressive policy looks like. Like how would you pitch Medicare for all, right? Like you pitch it as like a universal healthcare. Like there's no I don't understand what that means. Does that make sense? Like, do I even need to go any further than this headline? Like the latest capitalism dystopic headline. Nearly half of young people have money dysmorphia. You pitch Medicare as a fiscal benefit. It would be cheaper for everyone and guarantee Medicare for elderly and veterans and show how you could still have private option and choices. Right, but it's communism. Everything that the government does is shit. Why would I want Medicare? Why would I want a single payer system? That's communist. Stop trying to pitch me communist shit. Okay? It is not my responsibility. It is not my responsibility to pitch into a government program that steals my taxes just to give people health care. It's not my responsibility if grandma can't pay for fucking health care, okay? It's sad, but it's not my responsibility. See how that plays out? Do you understand what we're dealing with? Believe me, we've tried. We've tried. Because you are objectively correct. Medicare, a single payer system, would literally objectively be cheaper and guarantee medical care for everyone, including elderly and veterans, including your family members. But it's just not there. It's not clicking. It doesn't matter how you pitch it to them. Nowadays, the right is so completely divorced from reality that it's they think of it as a zero sum game. It's a Freedom to Healthcare Act. Communism is when people don't get healthier. Look at Communist Canada with huge waiting lines. In this, we replace the insurance companies that prey on hardworking Americans and fund it directly. No handouts to insurance companies and money straight to the doctors and hospitals. This would allow room for growth for people who want to make their own practice, which is capitalism, an American dream. Right, but like that's not even capitalism because a doctor who owns their own means of production, like but they don't see it that way. They don't see it. You could make this perfectly fine logical argument that makes complete sense, and they'll just say that it's like communism, and that'll be the end of the discussion. Like they don't want they'll literally they won't hear that. They won't hear no more handouts to corporations who are literally bleeding you dry. They don't hear that. These arguments went over the far right, but enough centrists and moderate rights to get things passed. Not even, unfortunately. I'm not debating that you're wrong. I'm not discounting anything that you're saying. You're right. And I think that most people would agree. I think that most people would agree in terms of the people here. We all understand how this works. I just don't have faith in the right wing. Have faith. Let's try it. I don't see a Democrat trying this. Well, that's because a lot of Democrats are lobbied half to death by insurance companies. Capitalism. Speaking of which, nearly half of young adults have money dysmorphia, survey finds. Here are the symptoms. Capitalism. Social media has put a new spin on keeping up with the Joneses. Exposure to glorified lifestyles online has many people, especially young adults, feeling financially inadequate, even if they're doing relatively well, reports show. Overwhelming evidence suggests social media has negative effects on self-esteem. That's true. I'm not going to dispute that part. That's not only true for how people feel about their appearance and social status, but also their financial well-being and economic standing. A new term, money dysmorphia, aims to describe the distorted view of capitalism. One's finance that nearly 1/3 or 29% of Americans say they now experience, according to a recent report by Credit Karma, often comparing their financial situation to others and feeling inadequate. Money dysmorphia is kind of like today's version of keeping up with the Joneses. Not surprising, money dysmorphia is even more prevalent among young... Yeah, this is all just capitalism. This is all just capitalism. Many of those who experience money dysmorphia have above average credit savings, Credit Karma also found. However, they are also likely to admit to being obsessed with the idea of being rich. Whew. Yeah. Still, only 14% of Americans would consider themselves wealthy, according to Edelman Financial Engines, and the bar is only getting increasingly out of reach. In fact, more than half of Americans earning more than $100,000 a year say they live paycheck to paycheck, which, what? A prolonged period of inflation and instability has chipped away at most consumers' buying power and confidence. Capitalism. Got it. What we found was a really strong connection between feeling badly about your money situation and how much time you spend on social media. Roughly one quarter of consumers feel less satisfied with the amount of money that they have because of social media. That can even lead to some to overspend on big ticket items such as a vacation, a home renovation. What? Yeah, the big ticket items such as being able to take a vacation, home renovations, to fix your home, or luxury goods because of the pressure to keep up with the digital Joneses. You can just say radical left shouldn't get mad that people don't agree with you. You need to lean into things. Paint yourself as someone who has a plan and everyone can have a beer with. You need to unite workers and not put labels on things to make on things or make voters feel bad. I don't disagree with the idea of uniting workers. Sell them on your idea and be a damn good salesman. Quote, there's this perception that you have to portray yourself as successful, and that means having an expensive watch or nice car, and that is so untrue. You have to make sure you're happy. Stuff isn't going to make you happy, right? But the corporate, the capitalist machine demands that you buy more stuff, okay? Or else you'll have money dysmorphia and feed you all this stuff that you have to buy. Man, cool, nice meme. I mean, I think that the left generally, the left generally is correct, and the left generally makes the most logical arguments, right? Like, how many ways can we pitch the ideas, before the other side, who's getting increasingly more and more divorced from reality, they'll refuse to even come back down to a baseline. Like, how do you have conversations with people like that? I'll say I'd be willing to have a convo on how the left can wing pack support if you'd have me. Normally I don't do interviews or conversations, but maybe I might be open to more formats, more different formats. But truthfully, I think that spreading class consciousness and getting people to understand that it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way is how you do it. You have to inject class consciousness where you go. It doesn't matter whether you have a podcast or whether you talk to people one-on-one, whether you lead a union drive at your workplace. But you can't expect everyone to get that. Most people are working all the time and don't even know where to begin to understand these topics, even if they wanted to. And you have years of propaganda and local sentiment to fight against. I'm just saying, realistic, practical way to win progress. You can't start with being mad others don't get it. You need to make them get it through conversation and start building bridges of understanding without the stigma of labels of left or right, capitalism or communism. I think that approach, I think that approach works better for one-on-one conversations, depending if you know the person, and depending on what that conversation is about. I think I think that approach works for one-on-one. If you're trying to convert someone you know, I don't expect that to work for like internet randos. Does that make sense? What is your suggestion like legitimately? The approaches are different depending on who you're coming across. Isolate possible allies and lose? No. If they're true allies, they should not be isolated. Why would you isolate a true ally? Does that make sense? Bill Maher says we should all be grateful for flat screen TVs. Anyone could be an ally. I've talked to many people from different part of the political spectrum, and there's always a point of agreement that we can reach. Usually this is by stripping down labels and focusing on policy. That's fine. I'm not opposed to that. As long as the thing that we aren't arguing about is people's rights, I see no objection. Your next topic, I use inhalers and my insurance last year said they will no longer cover it and charge $60. And this year, the same one is now $5 each. It's almost like it's arbitrary. And they just like make the prices so high just by engaging in rent-seeking behavior. They just literally just jack up the price because they can. But yes, I do have to finish this here. AstraZeneca to cap out-of-pocket inhaler cost in the U.S. Following the rival Boehringer's move. Drug maker AstraZeneca said on Monday it would cap out-of-pocket costs for its inhaler respiratory products at $35 a month in the U.S. from June, following a similar move by the rival Boehringer in Ingelheim earlier this month. High drug prices in the U.S. have been a subject of growing political scrutiny for years. Senator Bernard Sanders and other lawmakers in January criticized the four top manufacturers of inhalers sold in the U.S. AstraZeneca, Boehringer, Teva Pharmaceuticals, and GSK over high prices. How do I get rid of this? Skip ad. Okay, there you go. It had also launched an investigation into the prices at which inhalers for asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease were sold at the U.S. versus other countries. UK-based AstraZeneca's cap would apply to all of its respiratory products, including inhalers such as Airsupra, Bevespi, Aerosphere, and Breztri. Aerosphere would be applicable for patients who are uninsured or underinsured. Quote, "This is a very positive step which will save Americans thousands of dollars a year on inhalers," said Bernie Sanders on AstraZeneca's decision. I mean, now it's in my favor because now I can get 4 at $5 each. When before they only gave me 1 for 60, so to last about 3 months. Sheesh. The senator also urged Teva and GSK to take similar actions. We remain committed to working with Senator Sanders and the Health Committee to provide a greater transparency into healthcare costs in the U.S., said GSK. Teva did not immediately respond to Reuters for comment. Bezatri Aerosphere costs $645 in the U.S., but $49 in the U.K., according to a letter by Bernie Sanders and other lawmakers. Jesus. AstraZeneca's CEO, Pascal Soriot, said the company remains dedicated to addressing the need for affordability, but added that it is critical that Congress bring together key stakeholders to help reform the healthcare system so patients can afford the medicine. Bollinger said it would also cap out-of-pocket expenses for its inhaler costs to about $35 a month. I know you don't do discussions often, but I'd love to go over this topic again with you, maybe on call, because I respect you. I think you're genuine in your debates, and it's important to discuss with us leftists. Also, did you see the video of Bernie grilling Big Pharma? He's really cornered them and making them look horrible. They are, and I think that's not the first time he's done this. It's not the first time. It's not the first time he's done this. Every time he gets a big pharma people in the Senate, it's always a good time. Last year, Sanofi and Eli Lilly, the two major insulin makers, also announced that they would cap insulin prices at $35 a month. So yeah, nice. Trump is unable to make the $464 million bond in the civil fraud case. Oh man, this is more of a meme than anything, because like this isn't surprising. But I figured we'd jump into the last article for some laughs, huh? Former President Trump can't find an insurance company to underwrite his bond to cover the massive judgment against him in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud case. His lawyers told a New York appeals court. Man, the emperor has no clothes indeed, huh? Trump's attorney said he has approached 30 underwriters to back the bond, which is due by the end of the month. The amount of judgment with interest exceeds $464 million, and very few bonding companies will consider a bond anything approaching that magnitude. Trump's lawyers wrote. Trump himself was ordered to pay $454 million. The $464 million includes the disgorgement for his adult sons, Beavis and Butthead. Yeah, he's broke. The emperor has no clothes indeed. The insurance broker Gary Giglietti, who testified for Trump during the civil fraud trial, signed an affidavit stating that securing a bond in the full amount is a practical impossibility. Potential underwriters are seeking cash to back the bond, not properties, according to Trump's lawyers. Oh man, so another way of putting it is he doesn't have the money. If the bond companies, if the underwriting companies are seeking cash, not properties, not Trump properties, they're asking for cash on hand, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. He's gonna have to sell a couple of his properties. Trump's lawyers have asked the appeals court to delay posting until the bond until his appeal of the case is over, arguing that the value of Trump properties far exceed the judgment. If the appeals court rules against him, Trump asked the court to delay his posting the bond until his appeal to New York's highest court is heard. Last month, Trump was ordered to pay $355 million in disgorgement or ill-gotten gains by New York Judge Arthur Engoron in a civil case brought by New York Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James. Peekaboo. Engoron wrote in a 93-page decision that Trump and his co-defendants, including his adult son, were liable for fraud, conspiracy, and issuing false financial statements and false business records, finding that the defendants fraudulently inflated the value of Trump's assets to obtain more favorable loan and insurance rates. The amount Trump owed surpassed the $450 million with interest included. So yeah, I mean, the TLDR is yeah, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. Including fees and interest, Trump would need to come up with more than $550 million. He's definitely going to have to start selling off his assets to secure that bond, or if he loses the case, to pay. I figured that's a nice meme. What a great businessman, huh? What a great businessman. He found himself in hot water by committing fraud most of his career, and is now facing the music for it. Incidentally, he continues to con his supporters for every little penny possible, and people still donate. All right, folks, it is almost 8 o'clock, and I gotta get going, folks. I need to grab some dinner and start preparing. It's gonna get pretty cold tonight, so I gotta go protect the plants. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the gifted subs, and thank you for the sub as well, Cami. Kazion, I appreciate it. Thank you for the follows, biddies. Thank you, Heat. Thank you to the moderators, Michael Hassler and Heat. I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming by. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel go. I appreciate it. Don't forget, hit the follow button. It really does help us out. If you're on the YouTube, hit the like button. It really does help us out. Share, subscribe, do the awesome stuff. I appreciate it. If you want to support the channel and want to do so while wearing some cool merch, check out the merch store. Join the Discord. Okay, join the Discord in about 2 Saturdays from now. So not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. We will be watching Dune. Apparently, it seems like the people have spoken. Okay, looks like you guys on the Discord like the option that Michael Hassler suggested. So you know. That's what's gonna happen, I guess. Great movie. Alrighty. Another endorsement. Yeah, it seems like the common theme here. So that works for me. That works for me. Alright, folks. I gotta get going. Thanks again, folks, for your support. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya! Hang tight, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.